welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Let's get into some of the changing things that are going on in the astrology this week. I'm going to be focusing a lot on Taurus aspects because we've got a lot of Taurus things going on. We've got a Mercury retrograde that's wrapping up. We're going to be seeing Jupiter's ingress into Taurus pretty soon. We're also going to be seeing a new moon that's going to be coming later in the month of May in Taurus. But I really want to focus on this new decan that Uranus is going to be entering into. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm a Western astrologer with a focus in working with the Sabian Symbols as well as the art of tarot, and kind of infusing that with some of my clairvoyant visions for predictions with what's going on in the world. If you like my content, make sure you click the button below. Make sure you're subscribed so you're alerted as to when I have new videos coming out. Lots of new fun content this week that's a little different, right? But that's what Uranus is all about. So when I talk about this new decan that we're going to be moving into, astrologically, each and every one of the signs are broken up into 3 different levels. The first, the second, and then the third. Okay, so roughly about 10 degrees for each particular decan. Now, we've had Uranus in Taurus for several years now. Actually, the last 2 years or so, we've seen Uranus going through the second decan of Taurus, which has associations with Mercury. Okay, so specifically, when we look at Taurus, the first decan is connected to Taurus, and it is also connected to the planet Venus, because that's its rulership. The second decan that I work with in Taurus is going to be Mercury, and it has its associations with both Virgo and kind of like a Mercurial Gemini energy. And then the final decan, which is going to be 20 to 29 degrees of Taurus, is going to be a Saturn decan. So it's got some correlation or connections to like Capricorn or maybe even Aquarius. Some astrology practices, like some astrologers have different perspectives on decans. So just a heads up, this is what I've learned. This is what I have always worked with. So it might be a little bit different than what some of you guys have worked with. But to each their own, it all kind of plays out the same way. And what we're going to be seeing here pretty soon, after we have this Sun-Uranus conjunction, which is actually setting up over the next day or two, we will see later in the month, Uranus is getting ready to enter into this new decan. So it'll be from 19 to 23 degrees. That's where we're going to see Uranus moving into. So it's uncharted territory. I'm calling this a new kind of chaos. And it's very different. Specifically, the connection and the correlation to a new decan makes me feel like there's going to be a whole new set of lessons. There's new themes. And I'm going to break it down and talk to you guys how it correlates to Saturn, some of my predictions, some important timelines to kind of take into consideration, and all of the dates and everything in between. So let's start first with the date that we're actually going to see this new decan take place. That's going to be right around, here we go, once Uranus hits 20 degrees. Okay, so we're getting into uncharted territory just in the next day or two as Uranus hits 19. As many of you guys know, as Uranus was going back and forth with its retrograde and its direction, it only moved up to about 18 degrees before it retrograded this last year. So now that Uranus has been direct and it crosses into 19 degrees, it's already in uncharted territory. Now that is still within the second decan, so we're still seeing themes revolving around organization, options, choices, and also there is kind of this, I'm not going to say destabilization because that's just Uranus in general, but there is this sense of kind of like teeter-tottering where we see things go up and we see things go down, or we see them go left or we see them go right. And that is the energy of Mercury, right? Because it has like this kind of like Gemini perspective. The connection that we've also seen to the Mercurial side with Virgo to this particular decan, the second decan of Taurus, also has been a lot about food. It's been a lot about resources. It's been a lot about health and also the health industries, anything in regards to pharmaceuticals, to mandates and everything in between, job numbers and all kinds of job losses and all of that stuff as well. We have definitely seen that because that correlates very much to Virgo. So as it hits 19 degrees, it's going to kind of activate stuff more revolving around partnerships and who we're partnering with and what's going on in our relationships, or our relationship to money, our relationship to resources, okay? So the actual Decan change is going to come when Uranus hits 20 degrees, and that's going to be on May 28th, 2023. So mark your calendars. Just know from that moment forward, we're moving into this next new Decan. Now, in particular, we're going to see Uranus in Taurus for, another couple years. I don't have the exact date right now because I'm not focused on that at the moment, but just know that between now and the spring of 2024, Uranus will be going back and forth between this 19 and 23 degrees. So we're going to see Uranus cross over it. It's going to go retrograde. It's going to come back. It's going to station, and then it's going to move forward. So we're going to get an opportunity to really work with this, at least with like the first 3 degrees or so within the third decan of Taurus. Now, we will have a retrograde that's going to be taking place. That's going to be on August 28th, 2023. That's when Uranus will station, go retrograde. It's going to go retrograde at 23 degrees, which many of you guys know is an Aquarius degree. And I am predicting that that's kind of like the summertime when things really start to kind of get buck wild. One of the comments that I put on here was like, yeehaw. It reminds me a lot of like the rodeo bull, right? And right when, Uranus is getting up into the third decan, Uranus does not want to be tied down. This is when we start to see more global effects also when we get into the third decan. So where the first decan is like more personal, and the second decan is like how we interact with our, our peers and maybe our communities. Then we get into the third decan and we start to see this global theme of that planet. So we start to kind of see the wheels kind of wobble and then fall off when Uranus hits 23 degrees, and it'll hit that over the summer, retrograde. And then there's going to be more yeehaw moments in 2024 as we see the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Just know that if you have any personal planets within this 19 to 23 degrees of Taurus, if you have a sun, moon, rising, or a personal planet there, you're getting ready to undergo a Uranus transit. It may feel exciting. There may be sudden changes. There can be sudden flip-flops and changes of fate. We can see shifts in regards to our resources as well as our values, our bank accounts, or our relationships because of Venus's connection to the sign of Taurus. It really depends on the planet, the aspects, and the placement. And that's where it really pays to know your natal placement. So if you guys don't already do that, make sure you cast your chart or consider booking a reader with an astrologer who can really kind of help you better understand some of these transits and how to better prepare for some of the curveballs that life might throw you. Now, we're going to see the retrograde really take place from the end of August all the way until January of 2024. Actually, on January 27th of 2024, that's when we're going to see Uranus go direct, and that'll be at 19 degrees again. So it's going to kind of dip back into the second decan, still talking about making these changes, still creating new systems, trying things out. And then it's going to move back in the spring of 2024 into the third decan, and it's going to stay there for a hot minute, okay? So let's talk a little bit more about Uranus and Taurus, just generally speaking. I know many of you guys have been watching these videos for a while, so you have been prepared and already kind of seen and been working with this energy. Very different than what we had the last 2 years when we had Saturn in Aquarius and we saw squares taking place between Saturn and Uranus, where one wanted freedom and the other one wanted to kind of pull the handbrake and slow down or ground out our energies. In this next year, we're going to see several opportunities where there is room for growth, there's room for development, there's room for inspiration. 2023 for me is like the planning year before we get to some of the bigger shifts that are going to be taking place in 2024. But specifically, Uranus, it's a planet that deals with innovation. It wants change, and sometimes change requires disruption or revolution. And in the sign of Taurus, it's not particularly comfortable because Taurus represents stability and practicality and material possessions. So as Uranus goes through this particular sign, we can expect lots of changes in how we approach our finances, our values, our resources, and also our physical experiences, okay? So it's all about the physical experience, being in the body, being able to be grounded and aware and feel things and slow down. And Uranus has a tendency to like make us all feel like we're jacked up on like, you know, caffeine or Mountain Dew, and just not able to kind of settle and be present and make some of the decisions that we would like to take our time making, right? So specifically, you know, one of the big themes that we see with Uranus throughout this transit is economic changes. Because Uranus can bring significant changes to the economy and the financial systems, we see lots of peaks and valleys, and you guys have also seen this in the stock market. So it's very common to see unusual or unexpected fluctuations in the stock market and changes in how we approach money and also investing or banking. For some of us, it has been learning about cryptocurrency. For some of us, it's been this rude awakening that perhaps maybe this is like a House of Cards moment, or an emperor has no clothes with the banking system. Some people waking up overnight, if they've had some of their money or their accounts in some of these smaller banks that have kind of gone kaput and been absorbed by larger financial entities. And that's going to continue, okay? That's not just Uranus in Taurus, that's also Saturn in Pisces, showing us where certain structures that we thought were solid may be dissolving. That's also this Mercury retrograde that's been taking place in Taurus, where there's been a lot of money moving around and things kind of shifting. So appropriate in the midst of having Uranus in the second decan. It's really bringing this awareness to everybody and trying to, I think, encourage people to maybe pivot and come up with like a plan B for some of their resources. This is also connected to Pluto and Aquarius, and the fact that all of these energies in Taurus and this incoming Jupiter in Taurus will all be in a square to Pluto, which is really going to be representing where there's been power struggles or abuse of power or oversight or manipulation or control, and just flat out greed, honestly, out in the world, from, you know, political figures, from big business, from tech, that is kind of orchestrating or pulling the strings with some of these financial kind of crisis moments that we've been having. Innovations in agriculture and environment. Okay, this is a big one because Taurus rules agriculture. So it's very likely throughout this transit, we're going to see significant changes in how we approach farming, food production, land management. We may also see an increase in the use of sustainable and eco-friendly practices in agriculture in other industries. My mind was on packaging. You know, just earlier today, I was like buying something online and I see like this extra it gave me a choice. So I had a choice in the matter, like $2.99 charge. And I was like, what is this charge for? And then I read the fine print and it says, this is to ensure that your product gets to you, you know, like accordingly. And that if anything gets lost or goes missing, like it'll be replaced. And I was like, shouldn't that just be like a non-negotiable? Like that should be part of, you know, buying or selling, but whatever. And then it went on to say like, oh, this will be a zero carbon transaction, like, you know, you will be having zero carbon by choosing to pay for this because we're going to have different packaging and the way that we're going to ship it. And I sat there and I was like, in theory, this sounds really great, right? Because we all want to save the environment. Most of us should at least be, you know, if we are buying things from Amazon, trying to either, you know, bring all of those packages into one drop-off day, if at all possible. There's incentives now to be able to do that. They're giving digital credits if you're not having so many overnight boxes show up. And just everything else revolving around this push towards, if we're going to be continuing in the path of consumerism, how can we do it in a more eco-friendly way? How can we do it in a way that's helping preserve the planet, which I'm all for, but I'm not for these sneaky kind of hidden things where if you're ordering food or packages, it's like literally saying to you, you know, pay more money and you're going to have less of like a effect on the environment and a lower carbon footprint. I am really cautious about kind of sharing my own personal perspectives. I try to keep really kind of in the middle and try to be really centered with some of my views in regards to like politics and also what's going on in the world. But this screams to me the squares to Pluto, where we're going to start seeing there's going to be green charges and carbon taxes and, you know, all kinds of taxes on packaging and things like that. And so watch for the trappings, because I think we're going to see more that this is going to be bringing up with some of the squares to Pluto. We're also going to see it manifest as, you know, for some of these, you know, world leaders in sales or products, where they're basically entering into systems where they're saying that they're being compliant, but really in all reality, they may not be, or they're saying that they're doing it to be able to kind of convince consumers that they're doing their best or they're doing their part to help save the planet. So I'm on the fence about it, but I've seen more things that kind of make me question it than make me feel like it's a genuine incentive to want to do good. Material possessions. So Taurus also represents material possessions and how we see changes in how we approach our possessions and consumerism. So we may see a shift towards minimalism, more sustainable and environmentally conscious approach towards purchasing and consumption. So that kind of just builds off what I was saying. But I also think that it'll go one of two ways. This is just looking at Uranus in the sign of Taurus. This isn't taking into consideration the North Node in Taurus, which wants growth. It wants more money, more resources, higher taxes, more inflation, the price of food going up, the price of land going up, and certain natural materials being seen as more valuable. And I also feel like with Jupiter coming into the mix, we're definitely going to see a lot of people talking about their philosophy, right? Jupiter, or their belief in regards to what is wealth. And is wealth going to be having a new Ferrari in the driveway, or is it going to be having acres of land where you have freedom and you can also focus on a sustainable lifestyle? Everybody's going to have their own perspective. The rich will always get richer. It doesn't really matter what's going on in the stars. But in these particular aspects, I do see the opportunity, because Taurus is more common, the commoner, the farmer, the builder. All of these planets coming together with this Taurus stellium is challenging Pluto, basically saying, no, we're all entitled to wealth equality. We're all entitled to resources, to land, to having control over our bodies, over our resources. And then you're going to see some people who are going to go, no, more is more money, more food, more materials. And we're going to see issues with like hoarding and just mass spending and impulse buying. And yeah, we're going to see two sides of this particular spectrum, because it's in a fixed sign, but also because we're seeing squares that's going to play out with some of the fixed signs throughout the next couple of weeks. We will see disruption in real estate, because Uranus, can bring significant changes to whatever it touches. Moving through Taurus, it could be the real estate market, including changes in property values, housing shortages, new trends in home design and construction. So this can be more like solar living. This can be more minimalist living. This can be natural resources and people leaning towards wanting to have natural materials in their home. It can also be communal living, because Uranus does deal with communities. And so I have seen so many articles over the last few years of single moms getting together and going, let's buy a house and raise our kids in a communal fashion, or friends getting together and saying, let's buy acreage and all build our homes, on this land, or families doing that and opting to buy land and then have separate dwellings or almost separate units for each individual family member. So that's some cool ways that we can see that kind of play out. The other side of this is that it can actually create such high housing costs and challenges with that it's impossible for people to be able to afford to have ownership or possession. We're hearing about the things going on in the commercial real estate world right now, where there's half of New York City and other metropolitan areas similar to San Francisco, Los Angeles, other places where we have lots of office spaces that are no longer being utilized or inhabited. So as a result of the pandemic and people getting used to working at home, I think we've seen more of a drive towards really focusing on being able to utilize the internet and working kind of in this separate kind of futuristic, way. That some people may never fully return back to the office. Some people don't have jobs to go back to. Some people's companies, slash budgets and all sorts of things and realize that they can function in a way without having an office. So I do think we're seeing an impending kind of avalanche that might be coming with the commercial markets, because we just have so many spaces that are vacant. Obviously, some of the people who own these spaces commercially are probably still paying off of loans and all kinds of things to be able to own or possess these particular buildings or spaces. If they're not being rented, how are they going to pay? And if they're not getting paid, what are the banks going to do? It is all interconnected. So I do think we're going to see a lot more about the real estate market, but my eye is on what's going on with the commercial spaces. My eye is what's going on also with some of these issues with people who can't afford housing and homelessness, and people who are really getting to a point where it's becoming, not even easy to pay rent, let alone getting a mortgage. I also know that this is going to create more disruption in regards to the earth physically. So think like earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, building issues, foundational issues. I think we're going to hear more about that. I wonder if there's going to be more companies that are rushing to finish building projects, cutting corners, not really focusing on the foundations of things, and possibly not even, putting the investment of the time into the resources that need to go into the foundations of buildings and things that are being built out that can have some foundational issues. So it's the other kind of side of it. And then finally, new value systems. So Uranus can also bring a shift to the values and what we prioritize in our life. So we can see like an increase in value of authenticity, sustainability, community over material possessions, and individualism. For me, just, the whole Jupiter and Taurus North Node square Pluto is finally people waking up and realizing that big companies have been prioritizing profits over the people, and profits over the land, and profits over the communities. And I think we're going to start to kind of wake up and realize that all of this is kind of being created to be able to have some sense of control and limiting individuals from being able to have wealth or being able to have freedom. Overall, though, Uranus and Taurus is going to bring, tons of significant changes. There's so many more things that I can go into this. If you guys want to know more about that specifically, I have videos that I've taken through the 12 signs. Just check my playlists. I also did a Uranus and Taurus webinar that came out last summer. A lot of it is still applicable for some of the things that are going on today, and I talk about the future of some of the transits and what likely it's going to bring. Of the list, just off the top of my head, of the things that I was talking about, so many of these things have already started to materialize out in the world. The big one for me was AI and technology and the development of that, and how that was going to essentially create lots of job loss, and it was going to affect people who are in the service industry, whether that's like servicing other people at a bar or a restaurant, and now some of these things are becoming automated, whether it was the health industry or anything in regards to health and wellness and how that was being totally transformed. And I also talked a little bit about how this was also going to be affecting like nursing and anything in regards to like pharmaceuticals and stuff like that, because of some of the aspects that it was making with Neptune. So if you guys are interested in that, check out my website. My link is below. You guys can see some of my previous lectures that I've done on other topics as well. Let's talk a little bit about the third decan of Taurus. So the third decan of Taurus is one that's ruled by Saturn, okay? And currently we see that Saturn is in the sign of Pisces. So Saturn is sitting in a Neptunian ruled sign, which is about kind of showing where, like I said, the emperor has no clothes. The 12th house is what's hidden, or I guess I should say Pisces. And Saturn has a connection to the 10th house, which is like government and, big business. It also has connections to politics, politicians. And I think a lot of this is about what business is being done behind closed doors. I think a lot of this is about possibly, finally, hopefully getting to a point where we can start to kind of see and gain some clarity in terms of what some of the motives have been revolving around just the events of the last couple of years. I do think that this is also going to be about dissolving certain structures that aren't really going to bring us stability or security in the long term. You have to think of Pisces as the last sign of the zodiac. So if Saturn has spent the last 27, 28 years going through all the other signs, Saturn is getting ready to complete a cycle, right? And it will be moving into the sign of Aries pretty soon, in just a couple years. When it makes that ingress, it's first going to come into conjunction with Neptune, and then both Neptune and Saturn are going to move into Aries, creating a new Saturn-Neptune cycle. We have not seen a Saturn-Neptune cycle like this since the late 80s, early 90s, when we had the conjunction that was taking place between Saturn and Neptune in Capricorn. That was actually the generation that I was born in. I have that Saturn conjunction natally, and it's all about creating a solid foundation through spirituality, dreams, visions, and our connection to spirit. So it's going to be really interesting to see that conjunction come about at the very beginning of Aries, which already represents a new rebirth. We're going to see Aries that's technically going to be debilitated because it's going to be, Saturn is going to be debilitated because it's going to be in the sign of Aries. And call me a conspiracy theorist, but I have some concerns about like a very dystopian future, because Neptune can deal with isolation and separation, prisons, limitations. Aries also deals with individuals, it deals with the body, and then Saturn is going to be in that conjunction. So in my mind, I'm thinking like, what is coming? Like, is it going to be this thing where intentionally the Saturn transit through Pisces is bringing all of the breakdowns, bringing the global catastrophes, bringing these threats of war, or these threats of viruses, or all of these things that's encouraging people to stay home, be quiet, don't ask questions, don't say anything, don't leave your house, don't leave your country, just stay glued to your television set. And, there is pros and cons to each side of the transit. The pros would be the people who are looking around going like, this isn't my reality. I'm not creating this. What am I doing? What am I meditating on? How am I connecting with spirit? How am I connecting with my communities behind the scenes and privately? What do people do as citizens of the world who are going through kind of like this orchestrated quieting of the masses? And also just a lot of faith building. I mean, that's really what Saturn in Pisces is here to help us do. I believe that when this ingress happens, it could possibly be like the unveiling where individuals start to realize that we ourselves have almost walked ourselves to these self-imposed prisons, and that it's been an orchestrated period of time, or I guess an orchestrated series of events over a period of time that has been giving our rights away, right? By just kind of not paying attention, looking the other way, not believing, not listening, until finally when that happens and we start to realize that we may potentially be in a future where we're like living in digital concentration camps, that it's too late. So really some of the transits that we're having this year and next year, with Pluto in Aquarius, Saturn coming into a sextile with Jupiter, Uranus coming into a sextile with Neptune, people can choose to wake up right now, and they can say, okay, I'm going to start building a different future. I'm going to start building my own separate society. I'm going to start building on my faith, on my land. I'm going to start building new forms of also security. I think that's like the big theme. So while we're working with this third decan, okay, once again, everything becomes more so global because we're going to be seeing Uranus hanging out in the last 10 degrees. When it first comes into the third decan, it's going to hit 20 degrees. And this degree is associated with Scorpio. So it's about death, rebirth, regeneration, some major transformation. It deals with losses that end up being gains. It deals with some kind of karmic entanglement and where something is owed or something, needs to be taken or given back. All of these things kind of, come about. I think we're going to see this be a lot about debt. Okay. Just as an American, I'm kind of watching and going like, what the hell is going on? We're hearing things from Janet Yellen talking about how essentially the United States is supposed to be running out of money in the month of June if we don't make a decision about the debt ceiling here in the United States and come up with a plan of being able to start getting out of debt and paying our debts back. I have a feeling that this huge push or this initiative towards a central bank digital currency and CBDCs is because a lot of these institutions and these people at the top realize that there is no digging ourselves out of this. We have more money that is on the books in number than is actually in circulation. If we start to see that people are wanting to receive their resources, there's not going to be enough to go around. I do think that, the media has been really silent because they're trying not to scare people about what's going on. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an economist. It's just, it's these are facts so that you guys can go and look up. My concern is that when Uranus first enters this decan, it's going to hit that Scorpio degree. So there is going to be some shocks and rattles and rolls because we're going to start to kind of realize what losses or what is being taken away. And I think it can definitely wake some people up. Because it's going to be in a Saturn decan. We think of Saturn as something that is the vessel or the boundary or the border. It can represent authority and law and regulation and limits. So, recording this at the beginning of May of 2023, we've been seeing just like a domino series of banks that have been collapsing. And this is all, I think, for some time been coming, since, issues that we've been having with inflation, since issues we've been having with the banking systems that have just been like honestly giving out money that's just being kind of created out of midair. And then we see issues like the FTX collapse and other things that have contributed to just kind of realizing that we don't have a lot of security and that some of the money that we're investing and putting into banks are not being properly handled. And also some of the money that we're putting into taxes and other government entities are also being mismanaged and mishandled. So a lot of people are feeling a little uncomfortable with just the state of where we're at economically at the moment. I have a feeling that as Uranus comes into this particular decan, we're going to start hearing more about government intervening in stabilizing things and stabilizing resources or stabilizing the banks or coming in and passing laws and regulation revolving around some of this stuff. Just recently, I was, I've gotten into wanting to learn more about the markets and trading. And I was talking to my husband about being like, shorting banks and things like that. I'm not saying it's a good idea, but we were just talking about it and looking at the stuff that was coming up. And I guess you have to apply for a margin account to be able to do that. And so we attempted to apply for a margin account. We were not able to get one, which I think is unusual. But whatever, maybe they're wanting people not to do that. And will they do away with that altogether? I don't know. But that was the one thing that made me kind of go, that's interesting. So I wonder if we're going to see limits, right? Just, hearing from somebody who actually commented on one of my videos recently, and I went and kind of dug through the news, little articles here and there being put out about whether or not the United States would intervene and limit bank withdrawals, right? That's so literal. Saturn, being connected to limitations in government. We've got Uranus, which is going to represent kind of the pushback and the sudden shocks in regards to the financial system and whether or not people can get their money. I wonder if it's going to also affect like regulation in regards to cryptocurrencies as well. So could there be more wildness going on with the banks? Yes, I think there will be, especially watching Jupiter come into Taurus and then square Pluto. But I wonder if there's going to be more kind of meltdowns that push certain governments to kind of step up and go, okay, now we have to kind of get involved and intervene. And here is how it's going to affect your ability to buy a car, get a mortgage, have access to your resources, make trades, right? This is all speculation. But like I said, in traditional astrology, it's divided into 3 different segments called decans. And each one is going to kind of show us the energy of that particular planet that is fused with the theme of the sign. So because Saturn is known as the planet of discipline, hard work, and responsibility, I think that's going to be another theme. I think, is it fair for some people who have worked really hard to stay out of debt, pay their student loans, make sure that they make all of their payments on time, to potentially, live in a future where we're going to be penalized and charged more money per interest rate because we have a good credit score? I don't know, but I wonder if those are the kind of things that we're going to see with some of these transits. I wonder if this is also going to be a period of focus, effort, and diligence in pursuing material and financial stability. I know that I'm falling into that category. In my mind, I keep looking into what's going to be coming in 2024, knowing that whatever has been going on will suddenly accelerate when Uranus comes into conjunction with Jupiter. Saturn's influence on this decan can also indicate a need for patience, persistence, and also overcoming obstacles and challenges. I do think that this combination suggests the need to think practically and to exercise caution in financial matters, as well as the willingness to put in the work to achieve one's goals. There are no free lunches. I hate to break it to you guys. I think this is where the school of hard knocks is really going to show up for a lot of people, where they're going to realize that they can no longer just rely on living a life that they can't afford. And I think that we've gotten so caught up with just materialism and what we see on Instagram and what people have and what they're possessing and like how rich our lives look. But the question is at what cost? What are we sacrificing? How many years of paying things off and being in debt and not being able to afford potentially owning a home or having financial freedom because we're so caught up in the rat race of just trying to look good on social media? That's really the question that I want you guys to be thinking about, because I think it's going to really help us overcome some of these obstacles and challenges. I think it's really important to realize that takes patience. It's not going to be something that's going to happen overnight. I do think that these transits are going to give you guys the stepping stones this year to focus on being able to have more of a breakthrough next year. But it is going to be slow, and it's really important to take a long-term view of some of your financial planning and even investments or assets, and not be trying to make something happen overnight. Because if some of you guys are taking big risks, could there be big rewards? Yeah. Personally, I don't think it's worth it the next couple of weeks. With Jupiter square Pluto, the big guys are going to win. With the Mars and Venus in opposition to Pluto square the nodes, I do think we're going to see a lot of people get really excited and want to go to the casino, or they're going to want to go and buy the lottery tickets, or they're going to want to, make the sudden kind of get in, get out quick trade. But it may not play out the way that you guys think it's going to play out. And a lot of it is because there may be an upward swing that gets everybody really excited before things kind of really start to decline. But in just overall, generally speaking, this particular connection to Saturn in the third decan is going to require hard work, right? There's no easy way around it. We have to be practical. We have to be focused on material and financial stability. Be patient, be persistent, know that discipline and the effort is really going to be paying off. And now is the time to kind of come up with a plan, which leads me to the tarot card that is connected to the third decan of Taurus. 7 of Coins. You guys have seen that, right? I don't have my tarot on me right now, otherwise I would show it to you. But the 7 of Coins, you see the guy, he's standing there, he's holding he's holding his hoe and he's tending to his garden. It's a garden term, guys, stay with me. And he's just assessing everything that's being planted and everything that has grown, right? So it does kind of talk about being mindful of where you're planting your seeds. And that can be literal in this case. But in tarot, the 7 of Coins or Pentacles represents a period of assessment or evaluation. So this card often indicates when you're considering the results of your hard work and deciding whether or not you're satisfied with your progress. So whether this is an investment or whether or not you're feeling like you're getting or reaping the benefits that you need within moving into a new position, career-wise, you're reevaluating whether or not a relationship has what it needs to go the distance. You're reevaluating whether or not you should, click buy on that, ticket to France, wherever it is that you guys are wanting to go, because I know a lot of people are going to be feeling the travel bug here pretty soon. This card often indicates a time when you're considering results of your hard work and also just deciding whether or not you're satisfied. Satisfaction is going to be a huge theme. Do I feel like I'm making enough off of this side hustle? Do I feel like, this hobby is actually going anywhere? Is this network that I'm connected to bringing me something of value? The 7 of Coins suggests that you've been working hard towards your goal, but you're not yet seeing the results that you had hoped for. So for some people, it can be a time of assessing the situation and being like, is it time to pivot? Or do we stay with it and see it all the way through and hope that it's going to yield results when the spring comes? You may feel that your efforts are not being rewarded, maybe that progress is slow. However, this card encourages patience and perseverance, and that's a huge theme when we think about Taurus. It suggests even though that you may not see immediate results, your efforts may pay off in the long run if you continue to work hard and stay focused. Alternatively, another way of looking at the 7 of Coins is questioning whether or not your current path is the right one for you. You may be considering a change or reassessing your priorities, and this card encourages you to take time to reflect and make a thoughtful decision about your future. I could see some people this year almost pulling out of investments or pulling out of things that they have started too soon. And that's why I really want you guys to think about the patience and the willingness to be consistent and kind of hold out for the long-term payout rather than the immediate kind of satisfaction, or, you know, hey, things are getting too tough, I'm gonna leave now. For some of you guys, it's a better investment to leave. So I'm not going to tell you what to do. A lot of it's going to depend on your personal aspects, but this is definitely going to be a theme that's going to be coming up is, hey, is this financial strategy ideal for me long term? Am I setting aside enough money into a 401k? Can I continue to keep living and, you know, paying a certain mortgage if, you know, I'm going the rate that I'm going? Do I need to get a roommate? Do I need to refinance? These are going to be questions that you're going to be asking yourselves. Now, the hot zones that we're going to be seeing throughout these transits, I've got a number of them, so I want to go through them and show them to you. Obviously, starting with today, May 9th, as we see the Sun-Uranus conjunction, so I hope you guys are enjoying it. It's very kind of, like I said, yeehaw energy. Hold on your shorts. Like, don't let some of the events that are taking place right now throw you for a loop. Obviously, that's that kind of diabolical 18 degrees, so health-related things do come up, issues with clients, problems with pets. I've heard a lot of people talk about health ailments. Once again, reactivating the conjunction that we saw in the summer of 2022 when the Sun and the North Node, Mars North Node came into conjunction with Uranus in Taurus. So as the Sun and Uranus come together, it's reactivating that. We're still going to see Mercury hit that in a couple of weeks' time, and then it will get close, but it's not actually going to hit. Jupiter won't hit that degree until next year, so we've got some time. But, you know, it's highlighting a breakdown or a breakthrough, depending on how you look at it, right? It's all about the perspective. So for many of us, we're having this impatience, this nervousness. It's almost like these, you know, like on fire type of vibes of just needing to break through something. And it can provide breakthroughs, but it can also create like lots of unexpected or explosive situations. Something else that I've been kind of watching with this that's had me thinking is like, you know, what's going to take place with some of these Uranus transits? Are we going to see more of these chemical fires and spills? Are we going to see more of these explosions happening at food plants? I think a lot of this has been tied to Uranus and Taurus, to be honest with you guys. You know, filming this on the 8th of May, just after all of the chaos and the things that we've heard about what's been going on in Texas the last couple days. There's no coincidence that we've had a lot of people having, I think, nervous issues or nervous breakdowns or psychological issues, right? Saturn and Pisces stuff. But Uranus and Taurus stuff, right? Because it does deal with, you know, people unexpectedly just kind of snapping and, you know, coming to their breaking point. And the second decan and into the third decan of Taurus does have specific degrees that touch on violence. And so it's not unusual to hear more about these things breaking out publicly where there's, you know, shootings. And, you know, also this last week, just hearing stuff about the, who was it? It was like a group of people that were hit by a driver intentionally at a bus station. I mean, it's like, yeah, you could say that that's Mars, but we're starting to see Mars in aspects still to Uranus, and we're starting to see you know, Mercury square Pluto kind of playing out. So I'm not justifying it. It's not okay, but it doesn't surprise me because it's always about these explosive sudden events where there is some kind of crisis or health-related issue involving other people, right? Uranus. Now, on the 10th, this is when Uranus is going to break into new territory. Like I said, it's going to hit 19 degrees. And so that's going to be more a degree that's going to be dealing with relationships and partnerships and legality and marriages and business partners. And, you know, it's like, I'm curious to look around and see what happens in some of these relationships when, you know, financial stress really does show up at your doorstep and you have to kind of put your head together with your business partner or with your roommate or with your spouse and be like, what do we do? Like, you know, what do you have in the bank? What do I have in the bank? What do we have in savings? How much cash do we have in case we, for whatever reason, can't get to a bank? Where are our investments at? There's going to be lots of talk about this stuff. I think a lot of people are also possibly going to be calling financial advisors and being like, what the hell went on? Like, what's happening? Or can you help me? because a lot of it's going to be about relationships that we have with people who help us kind of, take care of our money. For others, it's going to be the relationship that you have with your bank, right? Whether or not you're freeing yourself from the bank, whether or not you're saying, I don't want to bank with this bank anymore, I'm going to another institution, or I'm, deciding that I'm going to invest my money in other ways, right? Only you know, or you can talk to a professional about that. But I think of freedom from the banking systems, or also the abolishment that's, I think, coming of cash. I think we're going to hear more about this push to completely get rid of cash. In some parts of the world, I'm hearing stories about you can't spend over X amount of money in cash, more than $1,000 or $10,000, or you're fined. Or in some countries where overnight, cash was essentially deemed like useless or invaluable because there was like a switch or a move towards, a digital currency. That's very Uranus and Taurus. All right, so then I'm going to take it to the 28th. Hello. The 28th. And this is when we are going to see that Uranus enters 20 degrees. So that's the Scorpio degree. So this is when we're officially in the new Decan, right here. So if you have any placements around 20 to, let's say, 19 to like 24 degrees of Taurus, you're going to be feeling this very strongly. Like I said, that Scorpio degree is like the holy shift moment. Wait, what's going on? What's changing? It'll be there for a period of time. It'll move all the way through 20 to 23 degrees between then and the end of August. And then when it gets into August, it's going to move all the way to 23 degrees, like I said, which is a Uranian degree. And that's where it will retrograde. Okay, so I'd like to read you guys the Sabian symbol for this, because I did not look at them, and then I looked at them and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna read them. My trusty or handy dandy Sabian symbol book. If you guys are wondering what I'm reading, you can check out my Amazon link below. So this is page, what page is this? This is page 20, no, I take that back, 86, okay? So it's 23 degrees and change, so we're gonna read 24. So this is the Sabian symbol that it'll retrograde back at. Taurus 24, a mounted Indian with scalp locks. The keyword is command. The theme is the conqueror. The symbol speaks to ingenuity, accomplishment, and pride, the ability to gain a superior position and authority over others. The image mounted Indian with the scalp locks is an aggressive symbol which suggests a primitive need to conquer the rule. The horse, which is alluded to but not specifically mentioned, represents power, senses, and the lower or animal instincts of man. The scalp lock symbolizes thought, imagination, and intelligence. The Indian is depicted in a position of control over himself and others. Interestingly, this image was not designated by Mark Jones as one of the images that came through as reverse symbolism. For this can be implied that this is not an ominous symbol, but rather an indication of earned authority and achievement. In modern times, the symbol represents corporate headhunters. At its highest, it represents self-discipline and mastery. Watch for tyranny or ruthless, off-with-their-heads approach to life, an obsession with controlling the thoughts and minds of others. Mind control, say you. The accent is on conquest and self-mastery. There's a chance of things could get aggressive and that heads might roll. Your greatest advantage lies in staying calm and exercising self-discipline. Guard against losing your temper or being too controlling. Avoid power struggles. Stepping stones would be authority, control, dominion, leadership, command, mastery, skill, aggression, and headhunting. Excuse me. So, Uranus at a 23, so it's going to wobble. Taurus wants stability. It doesn't want this chaos that I think it's going to kind of bring within this degree. The dispositor at this time is Venus. Venus is retrograde. I could see this as being a time where people are having to get more creative with how they're making money. where their money is coming from, what control they have over their resources. I also think that it's hard for me not to think about Uranus and Taurus and there being some aspect of how there is an influence that is going on in terms of how we're spending, what we're spending money on, what we want to buy, what we're eating. And I think that that might be part of it. So when we talk about controlling the thoughts and minds of others, I wonder if that's also going to be connected to like the Mercury retrograde, which is in opposition to Neptune. And just the fact that we've seen over the last few years, the power of this echo chamber that we see on the internet or that we see on the news, and this controlled narrative that if you hear the same thing over and over and over, you start to believe it, right? I just got to the point where I just turned the news off because I don't want to hear that. And I get freaked out seeing some of those videos where you see all of the news anchors reading off the same script. It doesn't matter what city they're in. That's when I started to look around and go like, who's controlling this narrative? And like, who's putting this out there? So with Mercury retrograde, at the time of this, this particular retrograde, it's going to be an aspect to Uranus. And we're going to see Mercury that's also going to be in opposition to Neptune. So best believe there's going to be some kind of mass media manipulation, distorting of things, not wanting some things to come out, pushing some other kind of narrative, trying to spin it. Some of you guys may watch my channel and go like, I didn't hear this on the news. This is crazy. And then you go and you look into it and you realize that a lot of this stuff is happening. You're just not hearing about it. So perhaps maybe a lot of this is going to be about people losing their heads, realizing that certain things are happening or that certain things are falling apart. I also feel like watching for tyranny and a ruthless off with their head approach. Is this going to be huge corporate layoffs? Are we going to see people at the top kind of get cut? You will see this with Jupiter and Pluto in a square. You will see this. You're going to definitely see that there are going to be people who are heads of things that are going to go. And whether it's because they're getting blamed for, things kind of crumbling, or they're having to go because of some of their wrongdoings or some of their mishandlings, whatever. So that's the Sabian symbol for the retrograde. So that's where the retrograde starts. We will see it retrograde until January of 2024. Oops, there we go. And it looks like it's going to go direct at 19 degrees again, and that's going to be on the 27th of January. And when it goes direct, 19 degrees and change, so it'll go direct at Taurus 20 in the Sabian symbols. And this is Taurus 20. Winds, clouds, and haste. The keyword is exaltation. The theme is holding center. The symbol speaks to the inclination of the average person to skim over the surface and avoid a deeper involvement. It also speaks to the instability and insecurity that results from a successful avoidance of commitment and responsibility. The image of the winds and the clouds and haze symbolizes impatience and change. This is yet another designated by Mark Jones as a negative or reverse symbol, and emphasizes the importance of staying poised and holding steady in the midst of temporary turmoil and confusion. At its highest, the symbol represents ability to stay centered in the fear of sudden change and crisis, and a gift for recognizing and seizing the opportunities that are stirred up by the excitement. Watch for inability to accomplish anything of long term as the result of a tendency to get lost in the superficial details. The accent is on confusion. Things are in flux and it may be difficult to get a grasp which direction or where to focus your attention. The greatest advantage lies in waiting it out, keeping your eye open for an unexpected opportunity, and staying calm. Guard against trying to do things too fast or trying to handle too many things at once. Failing to take time to investigate thoroughly could prove fatal. Stepping stones, change, instability, agitation, disturbance, turmoil, confusion, scatter, excitement. So it'll go direct on this degree. When planets go retrograde or go direct, we tend to see something revolving around that planet. So keep in mind, guys, on the 28th of this month in May, it's when it hits this degree. So it may hit that, bring it up, it'll eventually go retrograde, then maybe we see things kind of calm down a little bit, then it comes back to this degree at the end of January of 2024, and then in April of 2024, because you guys know I like to look way out there, in April of 2024, we're going to see Jupiter and Uranus come into conjunction. So I kind of look at this and I'm like, oh, you can't really fight the inevitable. Like this dam is going to break, right? Out in the world, but also look at where Taurus is in your chart. Know that Jupiter and Taurus wants to bring stability, resources, abundance, right? It wants to bring money. Uranus and Taurus wants to free you from something. So what if freeing yourself from that system ultimately gives you more abundance? What if it gives you more security? Right? That's what I'm thinking. That's where my mind is at. So we may be in 2023 right now, but Uranus is about the future. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I've got a 12-month plan. Where do I want to be 12 months from now? Where do I want to have my ducks, in a row? Where do I want to be living? What resources do I feel like I need? What do I want to have up and running? What other things am I, doing business-wise? What have I invested in? Once again, I'm not a financial advisor, but I can tell you guys that you're going to see, just with that Sabian symbol where it talks about crisis and not feeling like you have to rush to make a decision and jump into something, and that there can be an opportunity. Those of you guys who are investors, you know that when the market does take a dip like that, or something equivalent to like maybe what we saw in 2020, that's an opportune buying moment. When everybody's screaming about, oh my God, the stock market's falling apart, it's all going, to crash. Some people are going to be waiting around going, that's when I'm going to buy in, or that's when I'm going to diversify my portfolio, or making an opportunity out of something that for some people is a crisis if you were not prepared. So keep thinking about your plans, right? I'm going to give you guys just my basic bottom line predictions. And I'm also going to give you some more kind of recommended things that you can be researching or learning about on Thursday. So Thursday, I'm going to do a video all about Jupiter going into Taurus, and I'm going to talk to you guys about how to work with that energy and how to make lemonade out of some of the aspects between Saturn and Uranus, and a couple other things that are going on. I have like a whole flow chart that I'm going to show you guys. But these are my predictions or my themes for this particular new decan that we're moving into. Number one, chaos or instability brings new boundaries in finances, okay? So whether this is out in the world or in your life, whether you have your very first check that bounces or overdraft, or you have a situation where you buy a brand new car and you get over your head on, insurance and interest rates and everything, you're gonna start to see where your boundaries lie when it comes to resources. And sometimes we don't know where our boundaries are until the unexpected happens. So for some people, there's gonna be that unexpected expense that's gonna pop up, and you're gonna go, I don't have the money for it, and now I gotta take out a loan, or now I gotta borrow something, or now I'm in a pinch, and that's teaching you where your boundaries are in regards to your finances. But like I said earlier in the video, government limits or interventions, okay? So just talking about my margin account that we were trying to get, but we couldn't get it, probably a good thing because shorting is dangerous from what I'm understanding, but also limits of withdrawals and what you could do with your money and when you get your money out, and whether or not you can get your money out at any given time, so on and so forth. I think there's going to be more boundaries and limitations with that. Watch for disruptions of what we thought was stable, right? So whether it's a bank or a stock, whether it was a building, or a bridge, or just the financial markets in themselves, we're going to see that there's going to be instability. Watch for border issues, especially, its relation to Taurus. How much money is being spent on walls, border issues in regards to immigration, where we're sending people to the border, where borders are not sufficient. We're hearing a lot of talk about this right now in the United States, back and forth about, what's going on at the southern border. I think we're going to hear more about that because of Saturn's connection to the third decan. And also, whether or not we're investing enough money into protecting borders. I think that's going to be something else. Where is our money better spent? Is it right to send, some of our troops to the border? Is it better if we're really looking at, better kind of moving our tax dollars around and actually putting it into, systems and other departments that are going to better manage whatever is going on at the border? Price increases, especially inflation, cost of natural resources. Okay, so I'm thinking like energy, gas. We may see increased levels, not just because summer is coming, but because of this particular decan. So there can be limitations that's going to come up with this as well. And because the North Node, because Jupiter is going to be entering into this particular sign, I think we're going to start to see where there is record highs for some of these resources. But more on like increased food fees. I think we're going to see more interest rate hikes. And I do also think that there is going to be more talk in regards to carbon taxes. On that note, environmentalism, the material side of it, companies getting involved, new fees like green energy or, gas fees or other things that might start kind of popping up, and physical materials that may prove to be more expensive. So I wonder how this is going to affect land, lumber, right? Materials needed to build things, that kind of stuff. And disrupting the current market. Okay, so right now things seem to be doing unexpectedly good. Okay, let's just leave it at that. And when we talk about Uranus and the fact that it's going to go into this third decan, I do think that we can see a disruption to current market trends. Obviously, things have been pretty bullish. We've been going in an upward motion, but the market may become very erratic, and we might see it become more bearish. Crypto, right? We're going to hear more about that. Eliminating physical cash, and the Fed and whether or not they may regulate cryptocurrencies. That's something else that I'm going to be watching to see what goes on as well. You guys let me know, how are you feeling about this? Do you have any planets within the third decan? How are you feeling about this transit? How have you, those of you guys who have planets in the first and the second decan also, if you've had some of these conjunctions, leave your feedback. We'd love to hear from you and hear how that was affecting you so people can be better prepared. I hope you guys like this video for today, give you some food for thought in terms of how to make sense of some of these new energies that are going to be coming in. Obviously, if you want to know about where Uranus is transiting in your birth chart, you can always check out my horoscopes. My May horoscopes are out. We talk all about the retrograde in Taurus and also Jupiter going into Taurus. So you can go and listen to your rising sign horoscope and it'll tell you where this is taking place for you. Keep thinking about your 12-year plan, your 12-month plan, excuse me. I'll talk more about that in the video on Thursday. I'm going to talk to you guys about how Jupiter's ingress is going to really be super activated with some squares to Pluto and helping us get focused on growing our gardens. And I have a fun exercise for you guys in terms of how to kind of see it visually, not just really looking at the chart. If you like my content, please make sure you give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment below, especially if you are a first-time viewer. Make sure you're subscribed, and sharing is caring. If you like my work, you guys can check out my website. I teach classes on tarot and astrology, as well as I have personal private one-on-one sessions that I offer. My books are filled until about July, but if you guys want to book a reading for this summer, or if you have a birthday coming up, or you want to gift a reading to someone, all of that is available on my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com. Otherwise, I'll see you guys back here on Thursday, and enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.